My name is Derek Jones. I'm the Associate Head Coach, Defensive Back Coach at Duke University. I'm a 1996 graduate of University of Mississippi, aka Ole Miss, Hotty Toddy, and I'm from Woodruff, South Carolina. Well, I think being in the position that I'm in as a college football coach, it's blessed me to have the opportunity to make a difference in the life of young men. You know, where I come from, I grew up with a lot of guys that didn't have fathers. I went to college with a lot of guys that didn't have fathers. And being involved in sports most of my whole life, I understand the impact that a coach can have on you as a student athlete, as a man. A lot of the lessons that I learned playing football are lessons that I use now, you know, as a husband, lessons that I use as a father. And I try to instill and pass along some of those same things to the young men that I'm dealing with, because once you're done with them on my level, they go off into society, and now it's time for them to use the lessons that they've learned as a result of playing sports in real world. I think a lot of the things that you deal with in college sports now are very similar to the things that I dealt with when I was coming through, and probably people dealt with before me. But the problem that you have now, the thing you have now that you didn't have then, is social media. Everything you do now is on camera. Everything you do now is amplified, you know, with social media, whether it be iPhones, camera phones, and all the things that didn't exist. So you could get away with a lot of things, or maybe get a pass on a lot of things when I came through. Whereas now some of those things are caught, and you're talking about people that are 16, 17, 18, 19 years of age, where you're going to make a lot of mistakes in life, and those people are being held accountable for those mistakes for the rest of their life. So I think it's very important now to be in my position, to be able to help young men to make decisions that I may didn't have to make in the position I was in, because we didn't have those things back then. And one of the things that really enticed me about, you know, joining with the Bigger Than Ball team was to be able to use my platform to pass some of these things along. There's a lot of things I say to the guys that I talk to on a daily basis that has nothing to do with football. And some of these same guys that people praise on Saturdays and look up to and want the autographs from it, these are just little kids. These are guys that need guidance. These are guys that need wisdom. These are guys that need instruction on how to go about things on a daily basis, because they don't have the same margin of error that I had when I played. And an organization like Bigger Than Ball allows me to take the information that I may feed to 9 or 10 of my guys on a daily basis and be able to use that information to spread to hundreds of people because they need these same lessons, because it's just as important to guys that don't play sports as it is to guys that play sports, because we live in a society right now that doesn't have a lot of forgiveness. I think for me, I've always had goals, and I've always had goals I wanted to achieve and obtain. But I think the thing that probably propelled me to really try and achieve my goals was seeing a lot of my peers fail, and a lot of my peers miss the opportunity. And when you're from a small town and you see guys that you used to look up to yourself, or guys that were your role models that are still around, a lot of them hard on their luck, a lot of them in places that, you know, are not places that you want to see yourself, it's a source of motivation. So I think for me, a lot of the lessons that I learned was just seeing the mistakes of others. And it was kind of one of those things. I knew what I wanted to be at a certain point in time in life, but as I grew older and started to see some of the people that I once admired myself, a lot of those lessons I learned was knowing what I didn't want to be or want to become. I think it's just the aspect of education. I think a lot of people are praised at an early age so much by playing sports that they lose the concept of the importance of education. You know, sports is one of those things, especially in high school, that makes you popular, and everybody wants to be popular. Everybody wants to be accepted. But, you know, you're living in a 3 or 4 year window in high school. And if you're blessed enough to live, that 3 or 4 year window is going to close very fast. And you don't realize that life is really going to become important when you become an adult and when you become responsible for other people. But you don't think about that at a very critical time in your life, because oftentimes the time that you're most popular is the time that you have to be the most disciplined. And that's your high school years, you know, that 10th, 11th, 12th grade year. You got to be focused in the classroom, because there are a lot of guys at home today that could have been possible NFL guys, could have been possible Hall of Fame guys, but never got a chance to even play college football because they didn't have the academics to get into college. And I think just looking at situations like that myself, I knew that ultimately for me, I wanted to be successful. And success to me wasn't playing in the NFL. Success to me wasn't, being a Hall of Famer. Success was to me was being a guy that had peace of mind. Success to me was being a guy that was in position to have options, to maximize all of my talents. And when I see people that were one-dimensional, it showed me at a very early age that I needed to be multi-dimensional in order to be successful, because oftentimes you can concentrate or focus on one path, but those doors can close very clearly. Whether it be injuries in sports, whether it be you in a business and that business folds or goes under, you've got to be able to do something else. So I think just having the ability to be able to see how people were one-dimensional, it made me understand that versatility was very, very important for me to be successful and try to obtain and achieve my goals. I think the importance was having a stable father, having a father figure in my life that made it mandatory for me to study, made it mandatory for me to make academics a priority, and just having somebody that I wanted to emulate. My father wasn't a guy that made a lot of money. My father wasn't a guy that had a prestigious job, but my father was a guy that I never saw with the naked eye struggle. My father was a guy that I saw sit at the dinner table with us on a regular basis and had a smile on his face. My father was a guy that treated my mother with respect, and those were things. I think one of the things that every man should look at in life, whether it be a father or whether it be a father figure, I think you should look at the most influential male in your life and try to be better than that person. And I think if you can do that, then you have a chance of being a good man yourself. Fortunately for me, I had a father in my house that enabled me to be able to have somebody to look up to, have somebody to want to be like, and have somebody that I felt like there was no way I could go wrong if I tried to emulate. Most of my free time is spent focusing on how to better the time that I have when I'm not free, to be honest with you. I'm one of those people that I guess I would call myself kind of a deep thinker, and a person that's always trying to look ahead to make sure I'm not caught off guard by anything, or make sure the people that I'm responsible for are not caught off guard by anything, and I have a concept of a book called AP2W. And AP2W stands for Always Play to Win. And my book derived from me just waking up every day, probably about 10 years ago or so, and saying something that I thought people needed to hear, would benefit from hearing, or something that I myself needed to say to myself. I think being a coach, the thing you have to understand is you have to coach and educate yourself before you can coach and educate anybody else. The thing about being a husband, about being a father, is you have to coach and educate yourself on how to be a husband and a father before you can actually be that. You just don't jump into situations that you hadn't prepared for. A lot of things in life are spontaneous, but a lot of things in life have to be rehearsed as well within yourself. And for me, it's just all about sitting around thinking and wondering what would happen if I'm approached with this situation, and how would I handle this situation, and observing situations that you see, whether it be on the news, whether you read it in a newspaper, and in this day and age, the internet, you see things like that, and you kind of say, well, if this happens to me, if this happens to my daughter, if this happens to my wife, how do I handle or deal with that? So a lot of my free time is watching TV, reading, and learning. That's kind of what it derives to, because I think you always have to be in a situation where you're preparing for what may happen next. And Always Play to Win for me is about just that. It's about trying to learn how to get past situations, how to move on from situations, and how to prepare for situations that may happen for you. And I can incorporate that into my job, my main job, which is being a husband and a father at home. And more importantly, what I'm put here to do, and I think that is to make a difference in the life of others. When you look at the bigger than ball concept, being a part of this, that's just what life is. I was put in this position because I could play football, because I became interested in football, because I was hired as my connections through football. But more than anything now, being a football coach enables me to be able to take a stage and a platform to do the things that are really important in life. Everybody knows when you play a game, you want to try to win. But a lot of people lose the concept of life in itself as a game that we all must win. And, when you lose a sporting event, you can get past that. It's one of those things that you can move on from. But when you lose at the game of life, a lot of times that's the difference in, being successful or being unsuccessful. That's the difference in, losing your house or buying a house. That's the difference in, moving forward to put yourself into a financial category or missing out on an opportunity. So, always play to win is one of those things that may be perceived as a sports thing, but it's really bigger than that because it's about the game of life. That's why the bigger than ball concept ties into this, because we're talking about using ball, using athletics to learn how to win at the game of life. And when I say always play to win, I'm talking about always play to win in every single thing that you do. You're not promised a second opportunity to make a first impression. In a world where social media is very important right now, you have to be careful about the things that you post on social media, how you respond, who you allow to comment or respond on things that you may be a part of, because you're going to be perceived by the people that are looking at you and observing you for certain positions. If you're retweeting something, if you're reposting something that's not appropriate, regardless of whether the fact you said it or not, you're going to be associated with it. Or if you're allowing people to say things and post things on your page that you don't delete or get rid of, you're going to be associated with those people, because oftentimes people that are looking to hire you, people that are looking to partner with you, they only know what they see. And we live in a world today where your social media accounts are your resume, and they can be perceived as your resume before you get a chance to even introduce yourself. So that's your first impression. So knowing that you're going to be judged on these things, you have to know when you make these pages, when you post on these pages, when you allow people, when you befriend people, you have to make sure everybody's on the same page and accord that you're on. I say all the time to guys, you are a product of your circle, and you're going to be perceived by your circle. So make sure that your circle has the same goals and are headed in the same direction as you. Always play to win.